Go!
Breaking news. Welcome to today's headlines. Safinatu, the story of President Buhari's first wife. Safinatu, the story of President Buhari's first wife. To my dear listeners from wherever you're listening from, please stay tuned as I read today's news. Introduction. She was very shy and described as a retiring woman. Yet this graceful lady who did much of her activity in the background exerted her influence on Nigeria's most powerful man for 20 months. This is the story of Safinatu, the first wife of President Muhammadu Buhari. Birth, early days and background. A Fulani by ethnicity. The late Hajia Safinatu was born on the 11th of December 1952 in Jos, Plateau State, into a family of 13 children to Alhaji Yusufu Mani and Hajia Adizatu Mani. Her mother, Hajia Adizatu, gave birth to 7 out of the 13 children. She is a native of Mani local government in Katsina State. She was well educated and was so literate that she could read and write in Arabic, being well grounded in Islamic education. She attended the Women Teachers Training College in Katsina, where she obtained a Grade 2 teacher certificate in 1971. Safinatu was 14 years old in 1966 when she met her husband for the very first time, Buhari, then a young major in the Nigerian army. Had paid a visit to the house of Safinatu's father in the company of his friend, the late Major General Shehu Musa Yaradua. They had both gone to see Safinatu's father, Alhaji Yusufu Mani, who was working in Lagos then as the private secretary to Alhaji Musa Yaradua, the Minister of Lagos Affairs in the Federal Cabinet of the First Republic. Shehu Musa Yaradua and Umaru Musa Yaradua, later president of Nigeria, were sons of Alhaji Musa Yaradua. What happened during the first visit to Alhaji Mani's house must have been spectacular because immediately the young Major Buhari set his eyes on Safinatu, he was struck by the arrows of Cupid. That was not going to be the last visit to the house of Safinatu's house. Buhari would later pay numerous subsequent Onibara Bolembo visits to the family, and like play, the two started exchanging letters. With time, both fell in love and they could court for 4 years, and the two lovebirds would eventually decide to take their relationship to the next level. An interesting thing about Buhari's relationship with Safinatu was that shortly after the two met, the Nigerian Civil War started in 1967 and Buhari was deployed to the battlefield. This was one of the most tense periods in the life of Safinatu, and she would later reveal that she was always worried during the war about the welfare of her lover and would ceaselessly pray for him. In 1971, with the war over, the two lovebirds decided to seal it and they got married. Thus, all through the war, while Buhari was on the battlefield combating Biafran rebels, his heart was not only burning with the love of Nigeria, it was also burning for a young beautiful Fulani girl named Safinatu. She was 18 when they got married. On the 19th of January 1984, Hajiya Safinatu Muhammadu Buhari moved into the State House, Ribadu Road, Marina, Lagos State. 19 days earlier, her husband had just become the country's seventh head of state and as the wife of the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, she had to move into the State House. That was her very first time of entering the State House, even if she had been on the grounds of the State House at Dodan Barracks before. She arrived at the State House with a few of her friends, relatives, and her children, but they were all received by her husband. But upon reaching the State House, she was disappointed with what she saw. She was expecting to see a presidential palace in all its majesty and glory, and the State House then did not have all the splendor of a Buckingham Palace. Upon arrival at the State House, she was met by the housekeeper, Mrs. Adela Giwa, who then introduced her to members of the State House domestic staff. She was heavily influenced by social, religious, and cultural factors, and this was seen in her conduct and behavior as the First Lady. She was always quietly by her husband's side, but she concentrated almost all her energy on her children and making the home very comfortable and peaceful for the general. She started her daily routine by reading the newspaper. Thereafter, if she had no engagement for the day, she would receive guests. It was a habit to take breakfast late. Lunch was also late as she took them at about 5 p.m. and rarely took dinners. Even during the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, her family normally took no meals after midnight and never took the usual sahur at dawn. Sahur is the dawn meal taken by Muslims in preparation for this fasting. Although she and her husband were devout Muslims, they were also considerably liberal in their attitude to life. When Hajiya Safinatu took her breakfast, she normally had them alone, and her husband would have his own with his personal aides, like his aide-de-camp, Major Mustafa Jokolo, his chief press secretary, Malam Wada Maida, and his private secretary. At other times, one or two other people joined him for breakfast. To my dear listeners, now we've come to the end of our today's news.